All right, 3 minutes past the hour. We are going to get going. Folks, my name is John Watson. I am coming to you from Durango, Colorado, southwestern Colorado. Absolutely thrilled to have our panelists on. In a moment, I am going to have them introduce themselves. I just want to take a moment to set this up. I run an organization called the Evergreen Education Group. We are a consulting and advisory organization that's been working in K-12 digital learning, online learning, hybrid learning, blended learning. We run a membership group and a conference, and we advise a lot of schools and districts around how to think about using the various forms of digital learning to improve opportunities for students and outcomes as well. We think a lot about elevating student voices, not just in digital learning, but using digital learning and these different opportunities as a way to elevate student voices, because so much of what's central to online hybrid and blended learning is allowing students a level of agency, a level of control around what they are choosing to do with their lives. Having said that, there's a better way for you to learn about that than for me to tell you about it. And that's for you to hear from the students that we have on. So for the next 55 minutes or so, we are going to be hearing from these three, and also Stacey Gonzalez, who will introduce herself momentarily. Looks like we already have a group that's pretty active in the chat window. So before we go to some quick panelist introductions, I will mention we are watching the chat window. And so please put your questions, your comments in there, and we will be responding to them. All right, with that, we're going to start with some quick introductions from Jamar, Kanade, and Davina. Just if you could give, and then we'll go to Stacey. Jamar, start with you. If you could just give us quick background. Where are you geographically? Where are you in your educational journey? And anything else you want to tell us, and then we're going to get even deeper into the kind of schooling you've had and why we knew you'd be an ideal participant in our discussion today.
Okay, good. Thank you, John. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining the webinar today. As John's shortly stated, my name is Jamar Lee. I am in Sioux City, Iowa, currently residing as I finish up my undergraduate degree at Morningside University. But I am originally from the eastern side of Iowa, Cedar Rapids, where I attended Iowa Big. Many of you may have heard of Iowa Big through some of your work in the education industry. But the main purpose of Iowa Big is to unleash the full potential of young people like myself and those on the panel today through finding their purpose and passion by solving real world issues in the community. And so, said in short, that's how I got involved in many of the work that we'll be talking about today. And then my main focus from attending Iowa Big and my work in education is focused on learner-centered, student-centered learning. Like I said, I attend Morningside University, majoring in business administration and public policy with minors in entrepreneurship, sociology, and pre-legal studies. So I'm glad to be with all of you today in community, and hopefully can share some insightful tips that I've had from my educational journey and things of that nature. So I will pass it on to Davina. Is that next? Is that correct, John?
We'll go to Kanade next. Okay. Jamar, thank you. I know there's so much that I'm looking forward to hearing about your journey. Let's go to Kanade next.
So hi, I'm Kanade Noda, and I'm currently located in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm in my 8th grade year at Valor Preparatory Academy, and Valor has a hybrid system which has both online and in person. And I enrolled here so I can keep pursuing my dream of becoming a concert pianist.
Okay, I love the fact that didn't come out in our prep work, right? Or maybe I wasn't listening to that part. Okay, you're gonna have to tell us all about that. Yes, we'll get to that because I love that. I love that part of the story. Before we do that, Davina, you're up. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, my name is Davina Trimble. I am a senior at I Succeed Virtual High School, which is part of I Succeed Virtual Schools, which is an online asynchronous virtual, well, it's now a school district in Idaho. I've been at iSucceed for all 4 years of high school. I've been involved in their student council. I've been part of their building their student community and bridging it from being semi in person with events to, because of COVID, moving towards a completely online world. And so that's been incredibly exciting. I'm planning on majoring in political science or political economy in university, and I plan to go to law school after that and work in IP law and yeah.
Also stuff that I didn't know, and we'll have to talk politics and political science sometime, Davina. Let's see, Stacy Gonzalez, would quick intro about your role as well, please.
Sure. So fun to go after these amazing students, right? What awesome credentials you all already have built for yourselves. So I'm Stacy Gonzalez. I spent 20 years inside of public education. My doctorate is in ed tech. And I much like John, while John was doing the research around online blended instruction, I was building and implementing and innovating inside of school districts. Some of those means way before the pandemic, right? And so after pandemic hit, obviously a huge insurgence of let's build online and blended programs that work, that are actually real. And so a lot of that work with both Strong Mind and with Evergreen has been really helpful. So happy to be here. Anytime we can hear from students, that is certainly a real gift and a treat. So thank you for having us.
Thrilled to have you, Stacy, because we've known each other for a long time, and you were building the kind of schools that were so responsive to students. And so I know you've been living this and incredibly close to students like the three that we have. One of the things that I love about the combination of the three students that we have is you all had a very different, are having or had a very different type of school experience. Davina, fully online. Kanade, hybrid school. Jamar, online has been a different aspect of what you were doing, and Iowa Big, really, really interesting school as well. So I want to hear, I'm going to start with Davina. The folks that we have listening in are at different levels. Some of them know exactly what an online school is. Some of them maybe not so much. So Davina, I'm hoping I can go back to you to talk about two things. One is, what's it like being in an online, fully online school? Like, what does your day look like? That sort of thing. And then if you have any commentary as well about how did you decide on an online school? What got you to that point, and how does the type of schedule, the type of approach that you have now in school play into your goals?
Well, I'll start on that last bit, why I chose online. For background, I zoned for the largest school district in Idaho. I zoned for one of the largest high schools in the state, and a school that is it's a school that's big, it's competitive sports-wise, but not so much academically. And I'm very academics centered. I've always been the quote unquote gifted kid, but that label started to not fit as much throughout middle school. And by high school, I was planning on just homeschooling myself, doing GED at 15, and going on to university. At that point, I was considering architecture, but that has since changed. I ended up discovering iSucceed halfway through my freshman year. And while originally when I started at iSucceed, I was hoping to just do it in 2 years, I fell in love with the school, the community, and I saw that it needed more help from the student perspective because there wasn't much of a school community. And so I decided, you know what, I'm sticking with it. And so I slowed down a bit. I put more effort into getting not just good grades, but getting great grades and moving on from there and just enjoying high school.
I'm going to jump in. I heard
Of
you say
course.
something that, right, my ear popped up when you talked about knowing that there was a need to help build the community. What did you notice? And then what steps were you able to take to help make some moves there?
Oh, this is my favorite topic. I when I first started at I Succeed, the school community, start to finish, beginning to end, was a single group chat on Google Hangouts that was run by some teachers and had an average of 2 messages a month, maybe. Most of the time they were new students who were coming in and completely confused. I attempted to join clubs my first week at I Succeed, and there was, well, one essentially that was somewhat active, and it was a combination of newspaper, yearbook, and student council. Yearbook ended up getting dropped out of it because no one was sending in pictures, and student council and newspaper, the newspaper put out one little s'more newsletter a month or so, and student council just kind of was a hangout session. So throughout my time with I Succeed, I have moved our community from being just a group chat to being 2 Discord servers. You know Discord. Discord, there's one for the school-wide community that uses things like reaction roles to create clubs that students can join and leave at any time. Of course, some clubs like GSA are ticket only, if you know what that means within a Discord server. It means you have to like request it.
Yeah,
And
so let me give some context to this. And then
you
we'll,
might be able to explain it slightly better.
yeah. And I want to close a gap that might be there for some of our educational listeners. Because I know it was for me as I was in education and then now outside. And the way in which, even though the pandemic came and we use a ton of technology in schools, it's not the way in which kids are using and accessing community in particular. Discord being one of the servers that, think of it as like a way to have a closed group. You mentioned Google Chats being this primary place, right? And why that's important and what sticks out to me as somebody who now has a foot outside of education is that I'm working with a lot of Gen Zers and young people who are building things, and they are in these types of spaces. So when you have the agency in a virtual school to be able to create something that is part of your generation and actually integrate it into the school systems, that's a really powerful way. I mean, we're talking about elevating student voice. So what you shared in that example is extremely relevant to where technology is also headed. So just wanted to make mention of that.
Yeah, so we use Discord for student council, and I'm trying to get the newspaper onto it, even though I'm not part of newspaper anymore. But through my community building, we were able to give I Succeed a reason enough to build actual classes out of both newspaper and student council. So student council is currently a 2-part class, 2 quarters, because I Succeed runs on a quarter system. So we are essentially containing 18 weeks of content into 9. And so you have less classes at once, but you're still doing the same amount of work, sometimes more.
Really interesting. We've seen that that kind of scheduling, essentially a form of block scheduling in quite a number of online schools and hybrid schools. And also, it seems like a lot of schools that, like California independent study programs, which give students, in a lot of cases, they give students the option, like, hey, do you want to take 5 courses at a time, or do you want to go to the kind of schedule that you just suggested, Davina? So many students prefer that kind of approach. I want to go to Kanade next. So Kanade, you're at a hybrid school, and if you could tell us a little bit about what that looks like, how does a hybrid school work, and then how does that fit into your work towards being a concert pianist?
So yes, as mentioned, I go to a hybrid school. So it has both online and in person. I'm at the campus for my school right now, and I can go to the school whenever I want, but if I can't and I have to take off for sometimes travel to my concerts or my competitions, or I have to practice and stay home, I can just go online whenever I want, and I don't have to go in class and miss curriculum.
And can you talk a little bit about when you are, not when you're traveling, but when you're at home, what does that schedule look like? Are you going in? Do you go to the physical school every day, some days and not others, part of every day? Is it a set schedule? Is it more based on what you feel like or how you're doing in certain classes? What does that look like?
So I do go every day. And when I do go every day, I go to my classes, and all the classes it's a quarter system here as well. And I have about, I think, 4 or 5 hours in a day. And then I actually take different classes. I take classes with 8th grade, 7th grade, and 9th grade because I take 9th grade math.
And yeah, so can you share a little bit about what you really like and what works well for you in the hybrid schedule for you?
So when I do get to go on campus, it's nice to have some socialization that you can't really get in online, of course. And when I have to go online, I don't actually have to miss out any curriculum, and I can still reach out to the same teachers I have in person.
It's really interesting when we do discussions about hybrid. One of the main questions we get is about, okay, what's the schedule? And especially people who come from a traditional school background, whether they're in a school now or they just live traditional school, it's hard for them to imagine, I think, sometimes the idea that, oh, it changes all the time, or there's all these different flavors. There's not a schedule. And so the way you're talking about that flexibility that is built in, I think is so central and so valuable. Jamar, so we've talked about Davina in an online school, Kanade in a hybrid school. You're in a totally different situation. You were at Big, and then you were taking some online courses, and now you've been a university student for a while. Tell us about, I'm interested in all that, but especially if you go back, talk about Big and your online courses as well. How did that all play out?
Yeah, good question. So in short, I'll keep it as short as possible, right? I attended Iowa Big after many struggles in a very conventional system. So no hybrid, no online, your typical 8 periods of a day, sitting in the desk, being told information to regurgitate it on a test, right? And so it was a culmination of years and events that led up to me, really, and my parents, identifying that the conventional system clearly was not working for Jamar. And so we had met with the administrators of the school district and identified a few options. And at this time, Iowa Big was in the nascent stages of being developed. So it was just this new, just came to birth program. And so did an orientation, found out that, oh, I'm working on all these projects, I'm not going to class, I'm doing projects, to learn what I need to learn. Heck yeah, I want to do that. And so I stepped into Iowa Big with this perception and quickly learned, yes, that is it, but there's much more work to that. And so what I call my first month or so of Iowa Big was almost like this airlocking, what I'd say, time frame. I stepped in and I had to unlearn to relearn, right? And so us in the conventional education system, as I noted earlier, are almost held on by a leash with very little agency and discretion to find themselves and their purpose and pursue things in their educational journey that they care about. And so, and those are some of the main components of Iowa Big. And so I had to identify, the structure of Iowa Big in essence is you're working on this project that you care about, a passion project, but it is up to you, the learner, to identify the things you need to learn to successfully implement and execute this real world project with your actual business partner. Granted, you are being guided by a mentor, which are teachers, we call them mentors at Iowa Big. But to do all of that, coming from a system that had no components of that, it took time to get adjusted. And so, long story short, I did through that. Davina, you and I had similar stories in nature that I also wanted to major in architect during my high school career, and then shortly shifted into business and policy. So similar to you. But I do want to share a short story of my first project I did that kind of illuminated and kind of sparked, and made me realize my potential in Iowa Big in a hybrid model, was when I was like, oh, I love architect, but there's no community issues around building houses or buildings or things of that nature. But at the time, Iowa Big was in a temporary location. And so my mentor, Sean Cornally, had asked, why don't you, shoot for the stars and design our school in this co-working space? And so he said that and walked away. And so what did I do? I went back to, in the co-working space that we were working in and sat there and airlocked again, like, how do I do this, right?
Mm.
Like, and so I went back to him, I was like, what is my expectation? Long story short, he said, haha, this is exactly what I wanted you to realize, is that this is much harder than you anticipated. And so it's critical inquiry. And so I went through this whole process of identifying what I needed to learn, how I was going to do it, understanding customer discovery, things of that nature, understanding architectural drafting software, all of that. Did all of that, many road bumps along the way. And it came out to be that my final drafting was selected to be our school and was sent off to obviously a certified architect and then developed in the co-working space. And so I know we're in the context of technology and online learning, but the pillar of, or some elements of that, is that I had to utilize online learning. Maybe my courses, so say, weren't actually directed, or the content wasn't being coming through a computer screen, but the tools I had to utilize, all of that was based on technology and self-direction and agency. And so that came into fruition my senior year, where I actually started taking online classes as I went full-time Iowa Big, and had to substitute some of the courses that they didn't offer. And therefore, that was my introduction to actually being fully online. And then I was introduced to the Future of School Foundation, formerly known as the Blended and Online Learning Foundation, where I took a gap year before stepping on to Morningside's campus full-time, and completed college courses. And so to Kanade and Davina's point, the agency piece was instrumental while doing so. I didn't have instructors telling me when and where I needed to be and when the content was due. Obviously, there was deadlines, but there wasn't, a roadmap to when certain pieces should be done. And so that, Davina and Kanade, props to you for taking that on much, much earlier than I did. But those are some of the greatest success that I've had in a non-conventional educational system with elements of hybrid and community and project-based learning. John, is there? Oh, go
I
ahead.
really related to that, Jamar, because for what I did for my senior project with iSucceed over last summer was I essentially was like, we have so many issues with school community that are not being fixed fast enough. So I dedicated my whole senior project to building the school's virtual community from scratch. I was like, Google had recently created, switched from the old Google Hangouts to the new Google Chat features, which completely took away the join links that iSucceed depended on. Students couldn't join groups, they couldn't join clubs, they had to be put into them, they had to request it, which that adds that extra step that for an online student is just, it creates a barrier. So what I did was I built the Discord servers that we are now running off of. Originally we had 7, but we eventually condensed it down to one big one plus the student council. And so I didn't really have much of a roadmap. I had like 2 due dates that were really solid inside the course, and here we are now.
Yeah. Wow. What amazing opportunities and experiences that you all have had, especially when we are talking about, you guys are in transitions. We've got, right, Kanadi, who will be transitioning to high school, and Vinny, who will be transitioning to university, and Jamar transitioning into his, which I've got to say, do you have a website or whatever? Because we got to be in on, like we were here with Jamar in the early days, right? Or an NFT drop you want to promote. Who knows these days, right? But all that to say, I'm wondering how you're feeling about because it sounds like from the things I'm hearing, you got your toes dipped into other spaces outside of just the educational space. And so what are you feeling like you're really prepared to do well when you step into whatever your next is for you? Kanadi, let me start with you, and then the rest, you guys can jump off of each other.
I really like that there's so here in Valor, they have a system where you can actually go to a nearby community college. And you can take courses there, and you can also receive high school and college credits while doing so. I'm actually currently taking German right now for my musical studies.
Nice. And so how are you feeling that is helping you think about your future and as you transition into high school?
I think Valor has kind of changed my definition of what I used to think a school was. I used to think that school was just something that you attend. You have to kind of attend every day, get it done with, and just spend the rest of your day and then go back and repeat. But I genuinely enjoyed coming here and having opportunities that I never had at a normal public school.
So it's changed your perception of schools because you see that what can you name some specific things that kind of switched this for you, where you start to see these opportunities in a new way?
To me, I think when I first went to public school, I thought that it was more like a one for all situation where you just have to kind of adjust to a certain curriculum or a certain style of learning and deal with it. But here at Valor, I feel like you are encouraged to build how you want to learn and how you want to succeed. And it really helps you in that way instead of just forcing you to adapt to a different way.
And so I'm purposely digging in because I want to peel back the onion a little bit for people to imagine what this looks like for you. And so as you have these different opportunities, what does that look like in your day-to-day practices? What types of things kind of come across your day?
So as I mentioned before, during the day, I take math classes with ninth graders instead of eighth graders because of I'm in algebra 1, and I don't think many schools can just adjust, like make your schedule just adjust like that for yourself. And I was really surprised because I think that it's so usually in a public school, I feel like you cannot get that because you have to kind of adjust to the level it's already at, and you have to you can't really give your best, and they're not really challenging you. But Valor really encourages you to challenge yourself and bring up anything that you feel like you can do, and they'll help you with any way they can.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Jamar, Davinia, what do you think about that? Areas for you where you've seen new opportunities or ways to engage that, Jamar talked a little bit about unlearning, right? And what that maybe means with Kanade's comment, like I learned school could look different. So wondering where those connections are for you.
For me with I Succeed, because it's online and it's fully asynchronous, which is the big difference between, say, a hybrid school or most online schools, which run through Zoom, Google Meet, or something else. I Succeed, it is just courseware 90% of the time. Currently, there's a total of 3 classes through I Succeed that do utilize Google Meet, and one of them is Student Council, which of course I'm president of. And so you really have to unlearn the need to have someone teach you. You have to learn to teach yourself. Because yes, you can ask your teachers questions through I Succeed, usually via Google Chat or email, but you still have to know what you are needing help with. You can't just be like, I don't understand this unit, because the teacher isn't fully there to teach it to you. You have to learn to teach yourself. And that's something that is a huge adjustment for a lot of new students, but it's one that I think is so important to the real world.
A question. Thank you, Davina. And there's a couple of things there that I think we might dig into in a few minutes. I do want to address a question that came in that's actually a little less for the students, but I imagine that it's something that others may be thinking. The question is, a hybrid model would be ideal for students who are involved in extracurricular activities, would release lots of pressure for students and for teachers. However, I still need to see a model that does not put pressure on teachers, because having a hybrid model would require more resources, especially logistic ones. I just want to touch on that, Stacey. I don't know, you may want to also. There's, and I want to answer this question quite broadly, especially because during the pandemic, there were a lot of mainstream schools that had to add in emergency remote learning, and a lot of them call that hybrid. And it was students being addressed over Zoom, sometimes 5 hours a day. And that clearly did not work very well at all in many cases. Granted, many schools had to switch to that extremely quickly, and it was very difficult, but very difficult and very suboptimal. The hybrid schools that we work with undoubtedly take a lot of planning time, a lot of attention to online content, teacher professional learning, how to communicate with students, all those pieces. But once those are in place, in my experience, teachers absolutely love it. It's not easy or hard. It's a little bit like Jamar was saying, it's different. And there's a lot of things that have to be unlearned and relearned. But in the experience that I've seen, teachers love it. In fact, at this time, when so many mainstream schools are struggling to attract teachers, we work with a membership group with a lot of different schools. They are not having these issues. A lot of teachers want to teach in an online or a hybrid environment. Granted, if they have the supports, which are both the professional learning and all the other wraparound pieces. Stacey, you have anything you want to add to that? You've thought a lot about this from a school administrator, school leader perspective.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no, right? The whole notion of needing a lot of resources. I think as I'm in this, Web3 kind of reinvention of technology, what does this look like? There's maybe a different way to utilize the new, because in traditional public schools or schools in general they're kind of like, who are the big players that have these technology solutions? And most people are using them. And so we'll go with that. But there's probably like Davinia making a Discord, using Discord as community building. That's free, that costs nothing. But what it does require is thinking differently about who and what in tech teams, because I could see, I worked closely with tech teams in schools. There's concerns potentially around privacy and some of those things that are important as adults building these programs need to be thinking about. Certainly, but there's new and innovative ways. And by allowing students, like our students here, to have a legit hand in that process and a voice in that process, and allow them to experiment within some boundaries in the school or the district is a really, I think, a powerful thing. One thing I just want to add a couple other, just a note here I jotted down as I was listening. Students, when they leave, typically, or when they move into their career path, as I've been doing a ton of research around this, they're generating multiple revenue streams for themselves. So it's not, I'm going to graduate college or I'm going to whatever, get my job, and my job is my only revenue stream, right? This generation is very much like, I can freelance, what we might call freelance. I can freelance and do this thing. I can build community here and make money. I can do this technology thing here. And I think when we think about online and hybrid, it allows more opportunities in those types of thinking and spaces for students like this. And the other thing is remote work is changing in the world of work in general, and people want to work synchronously and asynchronously in balance. And so I've worked with companies, ed tech and startups that are fully running entire companies asynchronously. And so these experiences, I think, allow students to explore a little bit of that. Not sure if that exactly answered your question, but those were some of the things I was pondering.
I have a connection to both the question that came in through the chat, as well as your comment about privacy and safety for students in these online communities. Is that, yes, it was incredibly difficult for me to convince my school to use Discord. I got told no, I don't know, 5 or 10 times. I really had a difficult time convincing everyone. At first, it was like, only one club and we'll see how it goes. And then it went to no community, that's too hard to monitor. And so eventually I had to really think outside the box and come up with ways to verify that it is a student joining the community. And the way my school does that is you can join the server, but you have to verify yourself via an introduction. And we actually send you a message via Google Chat asking, hey, are you this person? Are you trying to join the community? We've only had one instance of where it was a student's friend trying to join, and that went over very well. We got them out really quickly because previously we had had issues with students inviting friends to school chats, and it doesn't work out that way. And for the Discord, going back to the comment, while yes, it was hard to convince the school, once I was able to, I don't think the school's going back. Google continues making changes that are making it harder for I Succeed to do what they've been doing. And one of those is getting rid of the record option in Google Meet. That seems to have been very recent. We had issues with it yesterday and had to finish off our meeting via Discord voice calls. And it worked. It fixed it. We're talking to the school about moving things like study halls online and events into the Discord. It's a great opportunity for schools, and I can't wait to see what happens with that next.
Excellent. Thank you, Davina. I want to go back to so Christina had asked the hybrid question. Then she said, by hybrid, I understand some students in class and some online at the same time. And that is in fact the distinction that I was trying to draw, that most of the hybrid schools that we work with that predated the pandemic, that is not the approach. And Kanani, I want to ask you about in Valor. So in your school, does hybrid mean sometimes you're online with a bunch of people, sometimes you're in school with a bunch of people, or does it actually mean, okay, I'm in a Zoom room, but there's also a bunch of students in class? What's the flavor of hybrid at Valor?
So if you're not absent, then you are required to go to the campus, and everyone is there, and there's no Zoom class going on at the same exact time. Everyone is there, and there are no, I think, Zoom calls in general here in Valor. If you are staying home, then you're actually just doing curriculum online without any sort of call, and it's all assigned to you by a strong mind.
Yeah, so thank you for that. And so what the Valor approach with, and I see Kel's put the hybrid schedule for Valor in there. And so what you're talking about is, yeah, essentially live synchronous is on campus, asynchronous, like Davina is talking about, is what you're doing online away from school. So Stacy has commented in the chat window and also over video, just about how each of you has been pushing innovation, the different things you're doing both with your school and in your own life as well, which I love hearing about. Jamar, I want to go back to you, and I wonder if you can reflect on the experience you had at Iowa Big. How has that impacted your college experience? Do you feel like it was good, bad, or indifferent relative to college, being in college?
Yeah, good question. And to answer that shortly, good, great. And so I think my Iowa Big experience itself, without talking about the gap year quite yet, allowed me to better find myself, my purpose, my passion, learning about my strengths, my weaknesses, and celebrating both of those, because both of those are good things to understand, right? Understanding that failure is actually not bad. The connotation and viewpoint of that in the conventional system is failure is bad, right? And so realizing that failure is okay, and that some of your greatest learnings come from failure. But then I think the biggest piece is agency, using my voice as a young person, student, and advocating for myself. Because as many times, and the educators on this, they want to do what's best for their students, right? And so making sure I'm using my voice and advocating for what I think is best for me. But then making sure that my purpose is at the center of everything I'm doing within my educational journey, because rather it feels like a day's work, it is a day of play. And so that's kind of how I've kind of navigated my college career. And I think those skills, and I think some of the soft skills that I gained in Iowa Big exponentially helped me in college. And so those communication skills with real world business partners, critical inquiry, critical thinking, strategic thinking, project management, Scrum, all of those things that I gained at a very young age that some learners aren't as privileged, I should say, because that was a privilege to be able to have that opportunity to do so. And it should be accessible to all, keeping that in mind. But then my gap year itself, navigating a part-time internship, a part-time fellowship with Education Reimagined, who I still serve as a fellow for, traveling and navigating online classes, keeping in mind that I had never taken online classes, allowed me to understand, one, how to be a professional, how to structure my day, and how to be agile. And agile is a huge thing. How do I quickly adapt and pivot to the realities of my day? And so realizing and almost having a halfway experience, I would say, of the real world at the age of 18, I think greatly prepared me for my college years because I had that insight and some of those skills I gained that others who came straight out of high school into college didn't have the opportunity to gain as easily. And maybe some did. But I think personally, there was some personal reflections that I saw with my peers that I was grateful that I had those opportunities prior to stepping onto a college campus as well.
Yeah, that you so well articulate. You talked about communication, like enhancing your communication skills, which is very obvious that you have great communication skills. I'm wondering, there's a huge push right now around social and emotional learning for students. The pandemic certainly has had its impact on all of us, but especially our young people. We're watching things that they're struggling with. And so I'm wondering what insights you could give relative to any supports that you've had or your experiences through your schools and what that has looked like, for you, and whatever that means for you, however that looks for you.
Absolutely. So the social emotional learning part, I think came out of Iowa Big, and the essence of a lot of self-reflection was done. That's a big pillar of Iowa Big as well. And even during my gap year, I think that was kind of some self-learning I had to do of understanding really my strengths and my weaknesses, but then identifying, and this, I think part of it comes with self-learning, because we didn't have a social and emotional learning specialist at Iowa Big. I just do want to point that out, was understanding and identifying those times in the day or when you're completing a certain task, when you're feeling agitated, when you're feeling overly stressed, and to identify those quickly and early on and how to pivot, and then what tools and resources work best for you to overcome that. And so I wouldn't say it was one particular person or one class. I think, or it kind of organically came out of the model of Iowa Big, but then during my gap year and my first year at Morningside, it was those mentors, such as professors, such as maybe even some of my online college instructors, that when I would go to the college for tests or exams, building those relationships. And so I think that relationship piece and the authentic, I think, transparency and your mentors, your educators being authentic to who they are and who, and them valuing you were some of the biggest elements for that success, or in that aspect of my success. Does that answer?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
that's great. And I'd love to hear from Davina and Kanade what social connections and emotional supports look like for you in either your hybrid or online programming.
Well, for me with I Succeed, because it is, of course, asynchronous, originally with like the social part of it, it wasn't there. That's what I dedicated my senior project to.
Yeah.
That is really what I focused on with I Succeed. I know most of the school admins are a bit sick of me constantly being like, hey, I found a new thing to fix, but it's good. It's good. And the counselors are all very amazing at I Succeed. They've really made my education career something wonderful, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kanade.
Socially, I think Valor is amazing because I love the environment here and I can interact with all my friends and I can interact with teachers when I go on campus. And even if I am online, I can still contact them whenever and imagine them as I work on my stuff independently. Mentally, I think so. As I mentioned, I am a pianist. And piano, it doesn't come just to the hours of practice you do. It does depend on your mental and emotional stability when you perform. And I think Valor has provided me the confidence and stability I need to be able to go up stage and perform confidently. And I really am grateful for them for that.
How did they provide that safe space for you to become more confident?
I think that whenever I come back from traveling, when I go back to Valor, it doesn't just feel like, oh, I have to go to school again. I'm so tired. I think it feels like almost like a second home because of all the students here. They're so warm. All the teachers seem genuinely so happy here as well. And I enjoy coming here because I never feel a sense of irritation or anger in the air.
That, wow. Like, I don't know if everybody's hearing what I'm hearing, but I'm hearing from a student that the student is picking up on the energy or the culture of the school. And because it feels warm, inviting, people aren't frustrated to be there, it makes you feel like it's a second home to you and a place that you can go where you can express and explore yourself.
The interesting thing about that too, relative to the comments I was making earlier about teachers in online schools and hybrid schools, I think Kanade, you just referenced how good you feel about the teachers there. Two things. First of all, I alluded earlier to the idea that teaching is a tough profession these days, and it's been especially hard during the pandemic. I do think that the teachers in online and hybrid schools are some of the happiest that I know of. The second thing too is that a lot of people, the range of experiences around how close students are involved with other students and with teachers really ranges. But in a lot of cases, or I should say, and in a lot of cases, these schools are really able to prioritize some relationships. And it sounds like, Kanani, that's exactly what you found at Valor. Stacy, did you have a follow-up, or should I jump into my next one?
Jump in, John.
Okay, I want to, we have 11 minutes left. So first of all, I want to say to all the folks who are out there, if you have final questions for our panelists, please get them in now, because we are just about out of time. Davina, Kanade, Jamar, in a couple of minutes, I'm going to go to you for the lightning round question. So, but I sort of have an interim lightning round question given our time left. I'm just curious, your lightning round question is, what do you want to leave the audience with? Your interim question, but we don't have a lot of time, so this will be somewhat quick, is there, what might you change about your educational experience now, or Jamar, in your case, looking back, maybe there's some things you would change from that time. And actually, Jamar, I'll start with you, because you've got the experience of having been in the kinds of schools we were talking about a number of years ago. Is there something looking back that you would change that you think would have set you up better for your situation now?
Great question. And I'll try not to be biased and say everything was great, because I've had great institutions. But looking back towards my time in high school, I wish Iowa Big, as advanced the program is, they would have incorporated more deliberate hybrid or online learning options. They did that very early on, like myself and a few others that were exceptions or pilot programs, so say, but I think there is some benefit to opening that up to all students to participate in that. I think that will allow for greater flexibility while working with community partners, interacting in the community, and doing independent research for that certain issue they're trying to solve. I think that would probably be the biggest thing if I keep it short. And other than that, encouraging my peers really to take advantage of blended and online learning. This was prior to the pandemic, right? And my parents were skeptical. Some of even my current educators in high school were skeptical when I was going to do that in college. But some of my greatest growth, that I've already noted, was during that time period. And so I wish I would have advocated more afterwards to share with them the true success that blended and online learning can have during that. And I think more recently, allowing my peers, even on this college campus, to realize, as you know, Davina and Kanade, as I was with you guys, I was quickly thrown into online learning here at Morningside. And so a lot of people, resented that. And I had already been taking online courses, was like, okay, yeah, I'm ready for this. This is nothing for me, right? And so just helping them realize that that was crisis learning. That was not blended in online learning. And I hate when people call it, that was, during the stage of online learning. No, that was crisis learning in my eyes. Helping them realize the true potential, taking out the context of that crisis. And I know that's hard to do, the true growth that they had that they may not even realize. So I think that's more of a personal reflection that I wish that I would have done sooner, but that I can improve on going forward.
The latest numbers suggest that almost half of all post-secondary students are taking at least one online course these days, which means that there's a lot of students who are getting into their post-secondary institution without the modality experience that they need to be a successful college or university student. Thank you, Jamar. Davina, I'm going to go to you next. I think you've been talking somewhat about, the social aspect. Is there anything else that you would say about what you would change?
Yeah. For me is the thing is to let teachers, because a lot of my teachers teach both online and at a different school in person, is to, now that they are back to in person partially, to not try and apply in-person learning techniques to an online school. I've seen it happen a lot recently. It's like teachers are reverting back to pre-online mentalities now that they think, quote unquote, of course it's not over, but the COVID learning is over. So teachers are trying to create more brick and mortar type assignments that don't work for a online world. So I really want teachers to reflect on, are my assignments something that I would give an in-person student, or is it something that's designed to work with the online learning? That's my biggest feedback.
Excellent. Love it. Love it. Kanade, anything you would change?
I don't think I had anything major that I want to change here. I used to think that there was a lack of non-academic activities here that they could add into classes and the schedule. But recently, Valor's been considering adding more stuff like that, such as a choir, which I want to help accompany. So I don't think I have anything to say other than that.
All right. All right. Well, thank you. Okay. Lightning round. We have just a few minutes left. And after that, so I'm going to go to the 3 students, then I'm going to go Stacy, and then we'll wrap. We have 4 minutes to do that. So I'm going to start with, and this is for all of you. What's the one thing, 30 seconds or so, that you would like to leave our audience with? I'm going to go Davina, Kanade, Jamar, and Stacy. Davina, you're up. Davina, I think you're maybe muted.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Yes. With online school, I completely forgot what I was starting to say. With online school, I want just teachers to take away from this. Think new, think big. Don't just sit in what you know. It's not going to serve you in an online school. Students are thinking different. Students are approaching their assignments differently. Think brand new. Relearn how to teach. That's my biggest thing I want teachers to take away.
Thank you, Davina. That's fantastic. Kanade.
I think with online and hybrid, it's really let me know that you can design your own way of learning things and education. You can reconsider what education is, and you don't have to just stick to one way of learning something.
Excellent. Jamar. And thank you, Kanade. Jamar.
Yeah, I think mine is similar in nature to Davina's, as encouraging you all to, as you're sitting on this call, you're thinking beyond and thinking bold. So continue to do that. Be a catalyst for positive disruption. Don't be scared to be that educator in your building that advocates for change. And then most importantly, listen to the voices of your students, as I'm sure you all already do, but listen to them even a little bit more and advocate for what they're asking. And then the last part in regard to what Stacy had noted with the workforce and hybrid and remote learning, my undergraduate thesis is in hybrid and remote working and the future of work. And so I do want to share with you all that there is prevailing research that shows like students like Davina and Kanade, when they experience hybrid and remote learning, are better prepared for the future of the workforce, which is hybrid and remote working and a myriad of other things. So just keeping that in mind as you are continuing your tools with your students. And again, thank you for all for joining.
Stacy, I give you the highly unenviable position to have to talk after the
Mic
3 students.
drop. Yeah, right. Thank you for that, John. Thanks for that positioning. No, again, everything that the students said, I'll add to that, to where Jamar is going. There's a saying, do your own research. Get out there, get on Twitter, find out about what's happening in the 4th technology revolution, right? Learn about Web3, see where we're headed. There's definitely a lot, things look very different. And if you've been inside of education for quite some time, it'll be pretty surprising potentially, but that's where these students and many of our students are headed. So excited about that.
All right. Jamar, Kanade, Davina, Stacy, this was absolutely fantastic. Absolutely. We're getting wonderful comments from all the, from so many of the attendees. I love hearing from you. It's just incredibly valuable to hear your perspectives. And we appreciate you taking the time to join us and to tell the world about your experience. For everybody who's out there, contact information for several of us is up there on the screen. You should feel free to reach out. And also, if you have a specific question for one of the students, you can send it to me or to Stacy, and we will be in touch with them. With that, I want to thank StrongMind for hosting this discussion. And again, thank you to all of you for attending. Thank you to the panelists for joining us and giving us all these fantastic insights. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
all
for
for joining.
coming. It was a wonderful chance to help out.